My name is Vincenzo D'Alto. I'm a freelance photojournalist based in Montreal. Colin and I had been photographing that afternoon in the Queen's Park in the green zone where the peaceful protesters had been gathered, and we had been photographing the mini clashes that were going on between protesters and police officers. And then at one point the line of police just moved forward towards the protesters, and they opened up, letting 2 or 3 police officers at that point rushed the crowd, and we thought they were going to grab a protester or two, and lo and behold they picked Colin off, and I was quite shocked at that moment. And then my next instinct was to take my camera and start taking photographs. And there's when I witnessed Colin being thrown to the ground and being forcefully arrested. He was being kneed as he was being put to the ground and handcuffed, and I also noticed some hits with the police batons. At that point they encircled him, and pretty much there was no access to see him, and then they carted Colin off right then and there. Later on that afternoon, as police had been moving protesters out of Queen's Park and north towards Bloor Street, we were next to the legislator, and I had been shooting a little bit of video of the line of riot police that were advancing on the crowd, and then at one moment they just rushed the crowd. So along with the protesters, I ran back. The police line stopped. At that point I decided to take 2 frames. I shot two still photos, and at that point I heard a gunfire, and an instant later I felt a sting on my leg, and I realized I'd been hit by a rubber bullet. I can't say for sure if journalists were being targeted in particular, but it sure felt that way when you look at what happened to me, for instance, being hit in the leg. I don't think that was an accident. I believe I was directly aimed at. A case of Colin O'Connor, who was targeted and arrested. You know, when journalists are picked up in a mass sweep of arrests, you can say, okay, well, they were there and they were taken in and arrested. But cases like mine and Colin's and another friend and colleague who luckily wasn't hit but was grazed by a rubber bullet, and just tons of other stories of photographers, journalists, videographers being arrested that day in Toronto makes it feel like maybe some members of the media were being targeted. The immediate physical after effects of being shot by a rubber bullet are severe pain. The hit feels like a sting, and my leg in my case was bleeding, not profusely, but bleeding, and for 2 days I was limping. It was pretty hard to walk. My leg was bruised. My whole thigh was covered in a purple-black bruise for a good part of 2 weeks. And there's also a slight psychological effect. You know, it makes you think the next time I'm going to be covering this event, should I go out there? How will I cover it? You know, will I be targeted? Will I be hit by another rubber bullet? What will happen? So there's a kind of psychological play as well that could be in effect.